Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the live chat. It is so good to see everyone. As always, great to see y'all. Welcome to another episode of the live chat. As always, it is so good to be here. I have no idea what today's turnout for the chat is going to be like. I'm not expecting a huge chat, big numbers, nothing crazy like that. It's been, to be honest, a pretty slow news week. Really, October in general, I have to be honest, has been incredibly slow in my opinion for big gaming news. It has been not an exciting month, to be perfectly honest. Just in terms of like major crazy gaming news, of course, we've had like some updates. We've had some things in regards to like more info about some launch games, things like this, but we really have had very little in the last couple weeks, like industry shaking, crazy big news. And I think there's a pretty big reason for that. It's because next gen is right around the corner. Everything is so focused right now on launch, on getting ready, for these new consoles to release. So I think there's just not a ton of crazy news that's being pushed out right now. Things are about to get a lot more exciting though. So for people that follow me, of course, I'm pretty much like my main focus is of course sales, business, that side of the industry, and that's all about to ramp up crazily. So basically as soon as we hit November and December, there's going to be so much to talk about, right? We're going to have new consoles on the market, how those are selling. We're going to have the big launches of games like Spider-Man Miles Morales, Cyberpunk 2077. So there's going to be tons to talk about soon, but right now we're in the calm before the storm. So, there just hasn't been any crazy gaming news. But of course, I don't want to miss a week with the live chat. So, not expecting a big turnout today, but make sure you start dropping those comments. Make sure you start dropping those questions down into chat. So, if there is anything that you do want to break down or do want to talk about, we can go into it. Not sure how long today's stream is going to be. I usually stream for hour and a half. I don't know if we'll have enough content to fill a full hour and a half or anything like that today, but you never know. Maybe things will turn out bigger than I'm expecting, but just make sure you start dropping comments, dropping questions down into chat. For anyone that might be here for the first time, basically the way this works, it is a show or a stream that is fueled by you, your comments, your questions. That is what drives this show. So make sure you drop them into chat. There's two ways to get your questions answered. Of course, the free way, you just drop a comment into chat. I hit as many of the free questions as possible. I think I'm probably going to be able to hit more than likely almost all the free questions today. But if you want to guarantee that you get your question answered, there is the super chat option. So if you drop a comment with a super chat, I hit it as soon as the super chat drops. It guarantees you get your question answered, but by no means feel obligated to do that. Like I said, today's not going to be a crazy busy day, so I'll probably be able to hit all the free questions, or at least most of them. So yeah, any topics you want to talk about, just start dropping them into chat. I don't think there's any big housekeeping notes off the top. I'm not on any podcasts coming up that I'm aware of. I've been super busy at work lately. So that's also part of the reason why I've been tweeting a bit less. My tweets are way down this month, both in terms of how much I'm tweeting and in terms of engagement. It's a really bad month for me on Twitter. Part of that is because I'm super busy at work, and part of that is because the gaming industry just has not been that exciting. All right, let's dive in though, because there are some questions dropping, so I want to start hitting those. Timmer with a super chat right off the bat. Timmer72299, thank you for the super chat. Hi Benji, do you see the id Tech engine being licensed out now that Microsoft owns ZeniMax? Great question, Timmer. So here's one thing I definitely think that you will be seeing. I do think you're going to see more first-party games at Microsoft using id Tech, possibly besides just the Bethesda studios, right? Which probably isn't super shocking, right? They went out, they bought Bethesda, they now own id Tech, so it makes sense that they would be using the engine, but I do think that there are some definite opportunities for some of their first-party studios to maybe use that engine. We know that Microsoft really likes Unreal Engine 4, or just Unreal Engine, I should say, in general. if you look at a ton of their first party teams, they build games on Unreal Engine, right? The Coalition, of course, unsurprisingly, uses it for Gears. We know that Ninja Theory is using it for Hellblade 2. We know In Exile is going to be working on an Unreal Engine RPG. There's a ton, right? I could sit here and list them all. But we know that Microsoft's teams really like Unreal Engine. But id Tech is an amazing engine. Anyone that's played Doom Eternal, like regardless of how you feel about the game itself, because I know the reception to the game has been like a bit mixed. Personally, I loved it. Like I loved Doom Eternal, but it is a lot different than 2016 in some ways. So I know like the actual reception is a bit mixed, but if you just purely look at the tech involved in that engine, it's amazing, right? You get a really high frame rate on it with amazing visuals. So it's a dang good engine, and I'd be shocked if Microsoft just let technology that's good, mostly sit on the shelf. I think you could potentially see some people do a Halo spinoff with the engine, if that's in the cards at all, right? I don't expect like the next mainline Halo to use that. We already know Infinite is using its own engine, but Halo is such a giant IP, such a giant property. I would not be shocked if we saw one of their teams do some kind of Halo spinoff and use that engine. There's a whole bunch of uses they could do for it. So in terms of first party, I do think you're going to see some people use id Tech. I think Unreal Engine will probably still be the main engine that Microsoft utilizes, just because it's a pretty easy engine to use, and it's also like great for tons of different genres. So it's an engine that a lot of devs like. So I think that'll still be the main one, but I won't be shocked if you see some id Tech games. In terms of will they license it out, it's possible. I'm going to say probably no, unless it's a game that Microsoft themselves are going to publish, right? So Microsoft does, of course, just like Sony or anyone else, work with, third parties and publish their games. We just saw Tell Me Why, for example, from Dontnod. We've seen the Flight Simulator team, who they don't own, right? So I could see a studio or a team that Microsoft is going to partner with to publish the game using id Tech, but I'm not sure if they would license it out for just a multi-platform game, just because there are so many multi-platform engines out there. There's Unity, there's Unreal Engine, there's Crytek's engine, the Cry engine, so which isn't utilized much, but there are a few games that utilize it. So I just don't know if there's enough like interest in the industry for id Tech to license it out. I'm not sure if there is enough teams out there that want to use that engine. They're probably going to be mostly using things like Unity and Unreal. So Timur, I would say it's an option, but not something that I think is going to see a lot of. I think it's mostly going to be first party Microsoft teams that use it more. But yeah, I do think we're going to see a lot of id Tech games for sure. And then I think we had another super chat. Yeah, let me hit Timur's second super chat here. Do you see a Sleeping Dogs 2 happening? The budget seemed low, 30 million, and it sold 2+ million. Decent? No. Well, thank you for the second super chat, Timur. In terms of a second Sleeping Dogs, I personally would love to see it. I love the original. Like, I think that game was awesome at the time. Now, I haven't replayed it, so I'm not sure how it holds up nowadays. But when that game came out, I really dug it. I really dug the atmosphere of it. I thought the combat was cool. I thought the setting was really cool. And yeah, 30 million's not a crazy budget, to be honest with you. We've seen that game get like re-releases. We've seen it kind of have some decent legs from what I've seen on like Steam and stuff, but of course at very cheap prices. That's a great question on if we'll ever see a second one. Here's the thing. I know that was originally planned, I believe, to be a new franchise, and the fact we still haven't gotten a second one says to me the game underperformed expectations. So while the actual budget might not have been super high, they might have been expecting like really big sales for Sleeping Dogs. We know how big open world games are typically as sellers, especially good ones. So I think it might have been a scenario where the budget wasn't crazy, but expectations were way higher than what we got. Right now, I'm going to put it at 50-50. I don't think it's impossible, especially because it is kind of like a cult classic game. Like a lot of people that played Sleeping Dogs really loved that game. And unless I'm crazy. I think there's like a TV show or a movie or something that's coming out utilizing that license. I could be wrong, but I believe there's some kind of live action Sleeping Dogs on the way too. So if that ends up being successful, yeah, it could happen. Right now, Timur, I'm going to place it at 50-50. I don't think it's impossible, but I also don't think it's necessarily like a lock. Put it this way, for another random game, but a game that also is like a cult classic that gets asked a lot for a sequel, I think a Dragon's Dogma 2 is much more likely than a Sleeping Dogs 2. I know they're different publishers, completely different teams. I know that seems like a weird comparison, but what I mean is these are two games that get a lot of people asking for sequels that we haven't seen in a long time. I'm going to put it more like we see Dragon's Dogma 2 before we see a Sleeping Dogs 2, but not impossible. And then we have another super chat here, which is just a nice one from Killian Butler. Thank you, Killian, saying, hey, Benji, hope you're doing good. I'm doing great. Like I said, work has been super busy. I mean, super busy for me. I work in retail, and we are getting like big holiday sets. We're completely resetting all of our stores to get ready for the holiday. And that is what I have been working on. So I've been super, super busy at work, but hopefully this is like the last crazy week of it. But I'm doing good, Killian. All right, let's hit some free questions. Super chats are cleared. Split End 89, best mod in the business. Thank you for being here, Split End. Make sure you check out Split End 89 does a lot of video content for GameStop, which is really cool. And Split End just did one for Control for GameStop, which is really great. If you check Split End's Twitter, you can find that video. Split End's super talented, really good. So yeah, make sure you check out that video. And saying we're like 3 weeks till console launches. Yes, it is crazy. So I have a plan. Actually, I'm cooking up right now. So just to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes kind of thing. I think 1 week before the Xbox Series X and S come out, I am going to do a bit of a different live stream. It's going to be me and a few other people having a roundtable conversation about what we're excited for the Xbox, what we're expecting from sales, what we're expecting, from Microsoft moving forward. And I'm going to do the same thing 1 week before the PlayStation 5 launches. I am not sure who all is going to be with me for that stream. I'm looking at maybe a couple big names. So just as a heads up, yeah, I'm not sure the final lineup yet. I will let everyone know. But there's a couple journalists and stuff that I would really appreciate doing that with me live. So there's a few things in the works there. But yeah, I'm hoping to have some pretty exciting launch content for Xbox and PlayStation 5. So I will let you all know how that goes. Hey Benji, how is the Quest 2 and is it worth the upgrade? Keep up the good work. So in terms of the Quest 2, I tweeted out that I'd bought it. I actually returned the Quest 2. I didn't even open it. So I spent all that money. I bought the Quest 2. I was really excited. But the more I read about it, a lot of people were really upset about the black levels in the headset itself. Like they're really gray instead of black because it's not an OLED screen. They switched screens. That to me wasn't necessarily the deal breaker because it is a lot better in a lot of other ways from what I'm hearing. But we do have the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, all of this right around the corner, and I'm spending a ton of money on that, right? I have them both pre-ordered. I have a ton of games pre-ordered. Thank you all for your super chats. It's really what's made it possible for me to get both at launch. Without those, I would have only been getting one, but thanks to the super chats, I can get both at launch and cover them both. So yeah, I returned the Oculus just because I'm about to be completely spending literally all of any excess money I have is going completely to next gen. So I'll probably get a Quest 2 again down the line, once we're into next year and I have all this stuff paid off. But I'm spending so much money right now on next gen consoles that I actually returned it. So sorry about that. I don't have a breakdown on the Quest 2. And then Split End asking for recommendations. Well, like I said, I don't have my Quest 2 right now, but things that I've played that are amazing on my Quest 1. Thrill of the Fight is an amazing boxing experience, and it's also a heck of a workout. I think it's only $9.99, so I highly recommend the Thrill of the Fight if you're looking for some good. I mean, I'm telling you, it will wear you out, and it's very realistic in terms of like the feel. It's great. So that's a great boxing game. If you have a good enough PC, Half-Life Alyx, it's amazing. I mean, it is literally mind-blowing. It's in my top 10 game of the year so far for sure. And I'm not actually a huge Half-Life fan. That's just how amazing that VR experience is. So if you have a PC that can run it, get the Oculus Link cable and play Half-Life Alyx. It is mind-blowing. The most impressive thing I've ever played in VR anywhere, whether that's PlayStation VR, whether that's, the Oculus Store, whether it's Steam. It is the most mind-blowing VR thing I've ever experienced. So Half-Life Alyx, Beat Saber, of course. I mean, Beat Saber is incredible. Get side quests loaded, get custom songs, and you will play Beat Saber forever. I mean, there's so many custom songs. So Beat Saber's amazing. Job Simulator's a lot of fun. Vader Immortal is very, very cool. That's a few off of the top of my head. Kostas, how big do you think Final Fantasy XVI will be? Huge. It will launch only on PS5 at first, so I think it would be interesting to compare with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yeah, this is a good question, Kostas. So here's what we know. Let me crack open my drink. For anyone curious, I'm drinking a Pepsi Zero Sugar Vanilla today. Big fan, big fan. Zero sugar. Still soda, so not great for you, but I like that vanilla and zero sugar, so hey. All right, Final Fantasy 16. So we know that Final Fantasy VII Remake has not sold at the same speed as Final Fantasy 15. Now that we have had, updated numbers, we found out about 5 million a couple months back. It's selling very well, but it's not selling at the same pace that Final Fantasy 15 did. There's a couple of reasons for that. One of them definitely is that it's, exclusive and not multi-platform. Xbox One wasn't like a giant chunk of Final Fantasy 15 sales, but it also wasn't negligible. Like, it sold a pretty decent amount on Xbox, especially for the genre on Xbox, right? I mean, keep in mind, it was vastly weighted towards PlayStation. I'm not trying to imply, Xbox was such a huge chunk of 15 sales, but it was a noteworthy number. And of course, that's not going to be in the mix whenever you completely go exclusive. So that will have impacted Final Fantasy VII Remake somewhat in comparison to 15. But I also believe that 7 is, of course, a remake, whereas 15 was a brand new game. And while Final Fantasy VII Remake is greatly different than the original, I do think there is something about, a brand new Final Fantasy that gets people very excited. In terms of how will 16 compare to 7, I could potentially, and we're still far out, right? We don't know near enough yet for me to make like concrete predictions, but I love doing these fun predictions. I could see a scenario where 16 does sell faster than 7 Remake because it is going to be the first new Final Fantasy on next gen. And that could potentially get people very excited. It also depends, though, on when this game launches. So it does need to have a pretty decent install base of PlayStation 5s to compete with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because look at how giant the install base of PlayStation 4s were when Remake launched. So I would say if this is like a late 2021 game or potentially a 2022 game, there is potential there for it to be pretty strong in sales, potentially comparable to Final Fantasy VII Remake or even better. But it can't be like early in 2021 because the install base just won't be there. And I don't think it is, right? There are some implications that this game is closer than we think it is. For example, Square Enix has stated that the main scenario is complete. Now, of course, there's still more that they need to do with it. It's not a done game. They said they're fleshing out side quests. They're doing a ton of development still on the game itself in general. But the main scenario, right, the main campaign is basically finished. They're going to still do things to increase graphics, to make them look better, things like this. But that says a huge chunk of the game is already done, or at least in a very far along state. So that implies it's closer than I think some of us thought when we very first saw the trailer, where it was like, this game could be, who knows, with Square Enix, right? This game could be 3 years away. I'm thinking it's probably late 2021 or early 2022. So at that point, PlayStation 5 install base will actually be pretty big. I think that they might hit 10 million shipped by March. So if you go late 2021, you could be approaching a lot bigger install base. So yeah, those are kind of some of my thoughts, Kostas, on Final Fantasy 16. But I think it will be very big, yes. All right, we just had a super chat drop. Let me hit that super chat really quick. Plastic Hearts Podcast with the super chat. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts Podcast. Always giving these super chats. Thank you so much. Keep being awesome, Benji boy. Thank you. Any crazy news Sony could drop in these 3 weeks till PS5, or is it just all Steam ahead till launch? Well, yeah, kind of like what I was talking about off of the top. We are in a bit of a slow news cycle right now besides updates, right? Everything right now in the last couple weeks is essentially updates. We haven't had many new announcements, right? We haven't seen, here's a brand new game announcement that you've never heard of. Here is a crazy thing you've never heard of. We had the PlayStation 5 UI reveal, which was really nice. But it's mostly been, even the PlayStation 5 UI reveal was an update, right? It's mostly been updates. From everyone, not just Sony, from Xbox, from Sony, even from third parties, Ubisoft, Activision, EA. We're in that update range right now because everyone's getting ready for that. So I'm not expecting crazy announcements in the next 3 weeks. I really think it's just going to be mostly this. I think your next round of crazy news, Plastic Hearts Podcast, is going to be the Game Awards, right? We know Jeff Keighley has the Game Awards coming up. He's still going to be doing that despite the pandemic. Of course, it's going to look different, but the Game Awards has become gigantic in terms of viewership numbers. I mean, huge. So regardless of how anyone feels about the end product, the actual viewership numbers are enormous. So I think you're going to get some pretty big reveals there. I'm not sure if it'll be specifically Sony or who, though I suspect Sony probably will have something there. So I think that's your next major crazy announcements are going to be December around the Game Awards. I don't expect much before that. Besides sales, we're going to have some really interesting sales stuff to talk about before that. But in terms of new stuff, yeah, that's probably your next bet. Benji's tank top. Oh my goodness, look at your picture. Not only is the Benji's tank top name amazing, it's amazing, but also your picture is a tank top. Don't worry, the tank top will live again. Trust me, it will make a return. Hi Benji, Microsoft's revealed code for Scarlet VR alongside PC VR. Do you think we get VR support for Xbox next year? Next year, I don't know, but yes, I do think Microsoft is going to be supporting VR at some point. And this is one area where me and Matt Piscatella greatly differ on our views, okay? Greatly, right? So anyone that follows me or pays attention to my stuff probably pays attention to Matt as well. And Matt is hardcore opposed to VR's sales potential. Now, I don't mean that as in, I'm not trying to say that Matt is biased and hates VR or anything like that, because Matt actually loves Astrobot, which is, of course, a PlayStation VR game. In fact, he's like crazy about it. So it's not like a dig at Matt. It's just, this is one area where me and him have very, very different views on the end potential of VR. He just tweeted about this. So here's the thing. Is VR ever going to be the main way people play video games? No. It's just not. I don't think ever. And there's some people that even still will say, oh yeah, one day VR is going to get there. I really truly don't think so. VR is a different experience. It's a completely different kind of thing, right? There is something, it is much more involved, first of all. Part of the reason people really love video games isn't just because it's an escape, because VR is very great at that, right? It's a mind-blowing how it can transport you to a different place. But it's also in a lot of ways relaxing. You can just sit down on the couch. If you're stressed out, you can veg out, you can just chill. And even if the game itself's intense, you're just chilling, right? You're sitting on the couch. VR, you're not doing much chilling. As someone that loves VR, it is very intensive, right? You are moving around. You are using your body. Games like Beat Saber and Thrill of the Fight that I just mentioned are going to actually wear you out. Not only are they involved physically, they're going to kick your butt. You're going to be sweating. So that is a whole different kind of thing than just regular VR gaming. Now, I know that there's different degrees of that, right? There's some games that are a lot less physically involved. Astrobot, right? You can just play that with a controller. You can look around. So not everything is like that, but it is a totally different thing. You also have the cost, though the cost is coming down. But here's where me and Matt basically disagree. Matt kind of is of the opinion that VR is always going to be niche, and he kind of thinks it's always going to be a very small niche. I just don't agree with that. It depends, I guess, on how you define niche. I don't think it is ever going to dominate the market. But here's the thing. Oculus right now is rapid growth. I mean, rapid growth. Now, it's coming from a small level, right? So it's not like all of a sudden Oculus and VR in general, rapid growth means, oh, it's huge. No. In fact, it is still currently niche, though a very fast growing niche. But as prices come down, as these sorts of things happen, as you see more games like a Half-Life Alyx, as you get these, we have an Assassin's Creed VR game on the way. We have a Splinter Cell VR game on the way. No, I really disagree that it is just going to be this tiny thing in the market. Over the next 10 years or so, I think you're going to see VR become, again, not this giant thing, but something that's a thriving industry, right? A thriving subset of the industry. So it will not shock me at all if you see Xbox eventually support VR in some capacity. I don't think that's coming next year, though. No, I really don't think so. I think at some point, yes, Xbox will, but yeah, not next year. We just had 2 super chats drop. Thank you so much for the 2 super chats. Let me hit those really quick. Professor Eck with a super chat. Keep up the positivity and high energy. Thank you so much. I always try to keep positivity up, right? We talk about this all the time on the chat. Don't like to preach to people, but I'm a mostly positive guy. I'm not above criticizing companies, but overt negativity is not my scene at all. So I'm not down with that. Not down to be around negative people. So yes, thank you. After the RDNA announcement next week, do you expect new information from PS5, Xbox Series S, and X? That's a good question. So as you mentioned, we're about to get some big RDNA announcements, big Navi or whatever, big new GPU announcements. We already did the CPU side, so now they're going to focus on the GPU side. Will we get new information? Maybe a bit in terms of how they handle ray tracing. Actually, we could see some more on that. Here's what I'll say. If we get any more updates on the tech side of these consoles from the RDNA announcement, I think it's really going to be around how exactly they do the hardware accelerated ray tracing? That is really the big question right now about them. We know that they do have hardware accelerated ray tracing. We do know that there are games that are launching that utilize ray tracing even at launch. If you look at Spider-Man Miles Morales, for example, it has, I think, some pretty impressive ray tracing for a console game. Keep in mind, it's not going to be at the level of like what a 3080 can do on ray tracing, but for a console, I think it's pretty impressive. So if we get anything new from them, Professor Ack, that's what I think. I think we might get a little bit more updates on exactly the tech and what they're doing on ray tracing and how potentially high the ceiling is on that. Because to me, that's still the biggest question on these boxes, is just how extensive is ray tracing gonna be. I think there's some encouraging signs. We're already seeing some pretty good stuff, and that's at launch. So keep in mind, if we're already seeing some pretty solid ray tracing support at launch, that bodes well for what we're going to see, in 2 to 3 years. Because launch games, I mean, just look at the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Compare launch PlayStation 4 games to what we saw from The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, right? It's a big gap. You're never getting the absolute best utilization of consoles on launch day. Even as consoles become more and more like PC, you're still not quite getting the best as engines are optimized to run fully on that hardware, right? You're still dealing with cross-generation engines and things like this, so a lot will change. So that would be my expectation. Maybe we'll get some more ray tracing info. Benji's Tank Top with a super chat. Thoughts on the Scorn gameplay? I think some gameplay stuff needs tweaking, but visually it looks phenomenal. Also, Dirt 5 sales predictions. Thank you, Benji's Tank Top, for the super chat. Yeah, so Scorn gameplay. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a big fan of horror. Big fan of horror games. Like, love them. They're one of my favorite genres. Scorn, I'm with you, Benji's Tank Top. God, that name's so good. The gameplay, I thought, felt kinda not impressive. Visually, it looked amazing. Though I'll be honest with you, as someone that loves horror, Scorn might be a little too gross for me, to be honest. The horror that I really like isn't so much like gore, though. I mean, gore is cool, it's whatever, but I really like stuff that plays with your mind and freaks you out, like, more of like a mental kind of thriller and scares than just like ultra gore fest. And Scorn, to me, mentally, it's not like freaking me out at all. It's just really, it's going for that Geiger style. It's just a lot of guts and weird body parts and things like that. And that, to me, isn't my favorite kind of horror. That's not the kind of thing that clicks with me as much as, more the psychological side. So, I'm not sure how I feel about Scorn, to be honest with you. It is a horror game, so I'm definitely going to try it out. Visually, it looks incredible. But yeah, I'm with you. The gameplay looks kind of meh. Not super impressive. In terms of Dirt 5 sales, it's a racing game that's going to be out at launch for these new consoles, and it doesn't have much competition in that space. So if you're going to want a next-gen racer, Dirt 5 is kind of going to be your go-to. Now, of course, we have some in the works, right? We have the next Forza Motorsport game in the works. We have the next Gran Turismo game in the works, but neither one of those are launch titles. We don't actually have a date for those yet. Forza Horizon 4 on day one is going to have a next-gen update, but it is, a game that you can already play, whereas Dirt 5 is going to be a brand new racing game. So I think it has potential, Benji's Tank Top. Racing as a genre in general isn't at the, peaks or the highs that the racing genre has experienced in the past. But I do think it does lend itself. The only other really racing type game at launch is the PlayStation game, Destruction All-Stars. But that game isn't like a straight up racing game, right? In fact, we don't really still know exactly what it is. There still hasn't been enough clarity around that game. But yeah, if you're looking for a straight up next gen racer, Dirt 5 is kind of carving out its own area. So I think it could do decent. I'm not expecting it to be a giant seller, but I could see it selling pretty decent. KH with a super chat. Thank you so much, K. Hey, Chris 1964, reset era sales genius for Japan. Yes, Chris is. I agree. Chris knows that Japanese market. Said when Nintendo can produce Switch, we'll have record sales in December, even without Pokemon, etc. Crazy. Yes, K. So, Switch has really been the main story of 2020. It really has. So many people are focused on next gen, but if we want to talk about sales, it is the Switch, and it's not even close. Switch is having one of the most mind-blowing years for a piece of hardware of all time. In the entire history of video games, Switch is having one of the most impressive years of all time. So Switch is really the story of 2020. If you want to look back on 2020 as a year in terms of like gaming, to me, it's all about the Switch, really. I mean, yes, next gen launch will be a part of it, but that's so much at the end of the year. That's November and December. It's only 2 months. It's the Switch. Yeah, it's going to have enormous sales. Globally, it's probably going to still be the best-selling hardware in this holiday period, even with next-gen launches. Now, it's potentially possible PlayStation 5 could actually drive higher revenue than the Switch this holiday. That's actually theoretically possible. We need to see how many Sony ships, because that's the biggest question. But PlayStation 5 is far more expensive than Switch. Switch is $299 for the regular, $199 for the Lite, whereas the PlayStation 5 at launch is going to be $500 and $400. So you're looking at way more expensive. So if Sony ships enough, which is a giant question, we really don't know what they're going to ship. It is possible, theoretically, that they could drive higher revenue. But in units, I really don't think that they can outsell the Switch, especially in Japan. Japan, there's no chance. I mean, there's literally none. I don't even think in revenue the PlayStation 5 will be able to drive the kind of revenue that Switch will. Markets like US and Europe in particular could be a little bit more interesting, that whole revenue versus units debate. I would say especially Europe. PlayStation's very strong in Europe, and Nintendo, while they are strong in Europe, are not as strong as they are in Japan and the US, so that could be interesting. But yeah, they're going to have an enormous holiday. Enormous. Switch has just been crazy this year. Thanks for all the questions, everyone. I really didn't know what today was going to be like. Because like I said, it just hasn't been a crazy, exciting week. So thank you, everyone, for all the chats. It's been fun. Ken B. Benji, I know you want a job in the biz. Can we petition to have you replace Pactor at Wedbush? His latest take that Nintendo should discontinue the hybrid Switch is so bad. So Ken, I don't like to beat up on Pactor, but if that really is an opinion from him, that is bad. Why on earth would you say that? That makes no sense. And like I said, I'm not someone that likes to beat up on Pactor. In fact, to be perfectly honest with you, who knows if I would have ever went as far down the sales path as I would have without Pactor. I really do think Pactor has, in a lot of ways, been good for the industry in terms of bringing up talks and conversations about sales and things like this. I used to watch Pactor Factor or Pack Attack. I think it was Pack Attack is what it was called back then, on GameTrailers.com. I used to watch that show religiously. I loved it. I loved watching Pack Attack. I mean, that really helped, spur my interest and my curiosity about the industry. So in a lot of ways, I owe a lot to Pactor. But that take, man, that is crazy. In fact, I think if anything, Nintendo should double down on the hybrid. The Switch 2 or whatever it's called should absolutely be a hybrid. In terms of the petitioning me to get a job in the industry, there's interest there. I can tell you that, Ken. In fact, I need to get back to someone. I've been... I can't go into any details or anything here. But I've had people reach out, yeah, more than once. The offers are starting to come, or the interest, I should say. I shouldn't say offers can be, but the interest from the industry to get me more involved is happening. Yes, that is an active thing. So, Ken, kind of the way I look at it is it's only a matter of time for me. I don't know what that's going to mean, though, right? So here's the thing, Ken. I think I'm pretty knowledgeable, right? I think there's a reason I've helped to build up the base I have is I think that I do have a decent knowledge, but I am by no means a pro in terms of like what people like Daniel Ahmed and Matt Piscatella. I mean, these are people that directly know how to, in best ways, break down things for like, investors and CEOs and things like this. I'm really good. I don't want to say really good, but I think I am good about breaking out what's interesting about sales, what is worth your attention, and kind of conveying that to gamers. So my big question right now in terms of what's my future, is it going to be directly being an analyst, or is it going to be continuing to build up what I'm doing right now into my own thing, or working for, I'm just using this as an example. IGN has never spoken to me about anything. I've never spoken to a single IGN employee actually. But what I mean is that kind of thing. Or is it going to be more covering games for like an IGN or a Kotaku, or, again, none of these places have reached out to me. I'm just kind of spitballing out here. I don't know. I don't know if it's more of an analyst gig. I don't know if it's more just keeping to build up what I'm doing. I really love what I do, right? I really love these live chats. I really love my Twitter. It's not in any way a position to where I can make a living off it yet, but it is still steadily growing. So, Ken, thank you for the kind words. Don't mean to go on a tangent here, but I know a lot of you are interested if I'm ever going to be able to make it into the industry. In one way or another, Ken, I think yes. Davon saying, oh, so that's what this guy sounds like. Well, that means you're a first-time viewer here on YouTube. So thank you for joining the chat. I hope you like it. This isn't the most mind-blowing, exciting one, Davon, but we have a lot of fun here. And yes, this is what I sound like. We had a super chat drop. Let me hit that super chat. 2 super chats, 3 super chats. Sorry, I did not see these ones drop. So we had 3 super chats drop. Case by case basis with the super chat. How crazy would a 2021 gaming year be if it's potentially PlayStation 5 with God of War 2, Ratchet, Horizon 2 versus Xbox with Halo Infinite, Starfield, Hellblade 2? Case by case basis, yes. 2021 right now has potential. When you think about it, 2021 is the first true year of next gen, right? Yes, they're launching this year, but it's the very end of the year, right? I mean, this is technically a next gen year, but not really. Next year is going to be our first full year of next gen. And to be honest with you, case by case basis, I think it has potential to utterly blow away the first year of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I mean, both whenever you think about what's potentially coming from first-party studios as well as third parties. That first year outside of launch for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One really wasn't that impressive. There was some cool games there, but it wasn't like amazing. What we have on the horizon in 2021 could be outstanding. We have Horizon Forbidden West already announced. We have God of War Ragnarok already announced. Hopefully those 2 games make it. We don't know for sure, but hopefully they will. We have Ratchet, yes, coming, which looks amazing. I do think Starfield is Microsoft's big holiday 2021 game. I do think so. So there's Starfield there. Hellblade 2, I'm not so sure about. I think Hellblade 2 might be a little bit farther away. Personally, but there's still all the stuff coming from third parties next year. Yeah, 2021 case by case basis has potential to be truly incredible. Yeah, truly incredible. I think it's going to blow away the first true year of next gen for Xbox One and PlayStation 4. It's going to be a great year. All right. Ryan Pulliam here with the super chat. Thank you, Ryan. Hey, Benji, do you think we'll ever get Alan Wake 2? Yes. Ryan, I think it's going to happen. Now, I have not played the newest Control DLC, but I know that Alan Wake is in it. So, and Remedy has talked about how their next game is a cross-universe game. In terms of Alan Wake 2 by itself, again, this is without me playing the DLC. I loved Control. I do not love that the next gen upgrades are not free, but I do want to support that game and Remedy personally, just because I am a gigantic fan of Remedy's work. And Remedy don't have many big sellers, so I'm personally going to buy the next gen Control edition. Yes, I wish it was free. Yes, I really do wish that. But like I said, Remedy is a company that I always throw my money behind because I really want that company to succeed. They're one of those studios out there that's doing something different, that are writing very unique stories, that are doing different things. You know, people always talk about how they don't want the same recycled games over and over, right? They want unique things. Well, that's what Remedy's doing. So I always want to support Remedy. So I'm buying that next gen Control edition. I totally understand people that aren't going to, that already bought Control in the season pass, and they're like, why would I buy this? I totally get that. I'm not trying to pressure anyone into anything. I'm just saying, me on a personal level, that's a studio I want to support. So I do think more Alan Wake content's coming. Is it going to be Alan Wake 2, or is the next game going to be Alan Wake and Jesse Faden together? I don't know. But Ryan, yes, you're going to get some kind of more Alan Wake stuff for sure. I really hope they do a next-gen remake or remaster of Alan Wake 1. That is what I would love to see. Obviously, Alan Wake 2, but I would love to see a remake or remaster of Alan Wake, the original. KH with a super chat here. Thank you for another super chat, K. Add Breath of the Wild 2, Pokemon Snap, Shin Megami Tensei 5, No More Heroes 3, Bayonetta 3, Mario, Bowser's Fury for Switch. Isn't it great to be a gamer? 3 huge companies fighting for us. Nice. You're spot on, Kay. Switch has an outstanding lineup next year. I mean, Switch's lineup next year looks way better, I think, than this year. Switch had a colossal 2020, and that was really with a okay lineup, right? I think even the most hardcore Nintendo fans wouldn't say that 2020 was like the most mind-blowing year for Nintendo in terms of releases. There was definitely some good ones, right? We had Animal Crossing, which is just a gigantic hit. I mean, ginormous. We had Age of Calamity on the way. There was Paper Mario. There was Xenoblade Definitive Edition. So it hasn't been like a trash year for Switch or anything like that, but it hasn't been like their best year ever for output. But 2021, I think, looks way better for Switch than 2020, just in terms of number of interesting quality games. So yeah. Once we look at PlayStation, once we look at what Xbox potentially has, once we look at Switch, I think 2021 is going to be colossal year. Yes. Timmer with a 50. Timmer. That is unbelievably kind of you. Timmer with a gigantic super chat here. Gigantic. Timmer, listen, before I even answer your question, Timmer, you are one of my biggest supporters here on YouTube. Always super awesome on Twitter. Anyone that does not follow Timmer72299, I'm not just doing this because of the super chat. Timmer digs up interesting info. Timmer puts a lot of work and effort behind uncovering sales numbers and budgets. Follow Timmer on Twitter if you haven't yet. Timmer72299 with an incredibly generous super chat here. Thank you so much, Timmer. In the future, do you see a big private equity firm acquiring or owning a publisher, big or small? This is good. This is good. I think the ZeniMax Microsoft deal may have some firms significantly interested in this specter sector, especially after the ZeniMax equity co-owner pulled out. Timur, yes, we've kind of talked about this before a little bit. I think there's so much money coming into gaming in the next 10 years from all over the place. The investment you're going to see into gaming is going to be enormous, because the gaming industry right now's momentum is off the charts. Okay, it is the upside for gaming. Gaming is ubiquitous, right? It's all across everyone now, right? It's been that way a bit for a while, but emerging markets are growing. There's things in the works that are going to make games way more accessible to way more people. Streaming, in my opinion, isn't going to ever replace owning a console, but it is going to open up a market for people that don't traditionally buy consoles. So things like xCloud, things like what Google is working on, yes, things that Amazon's working on, things that Sony is working on. Streaming is going to make that reach way more people. Like I said, there's markets in general that are emerging that traditionally weren't huge. Places like the Middle East, places like India are going to see growth. Potentially maybe China one day. I'm no expert on China like Daniel Ahmed is. That is still really a PC and mobile market, but that's still gaming, right? Whether it's PC, whether it's mobile. In general, gaming, I'm telling y'all, it's going to keep growing. And where there is growth, there is the opportunity to make money. So yes, Timur, I do think you're going to see more and more. Look at, this is a bit of a spin-off of your question, but look at what just happened with Uncharted with Tom Holland today, right? Movies, TV shows, we see animes, we see Cyberpunk, we see, Uncharted movie on the way. There's a Last of Us HBO, right? HBO series on the way. There's a Halo Showtime series on the way. All this stuff is going to bring more and more eyeballs to these gaming properties. It's going to just increase value. Timur, there is a lot of money to be made. Big private equity. I could absolutely see either flat out buying, like you mentioned, publishers, big or small, or investing into them, even if they don't become like a full owner, buying up shares, things like this. Timur, yes, I think that gaming is in a very good spot right now. Very, 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 very good. All across the board. We're in a scenario right now where there's just so many avenues for gaming. That's what I always hate about whenever you see articles like, oh, consoles are doomed, now that mobile's growing, or, oh, everything's going to be VR, or, oh, VR's not going to do anything. I don't agree with any of these takes because we're in a scenario right now where there are so many options for games to be successful, whether that's mobile, whether that's Switch, whether that's exclusive, whether that's multi-platform. There's just a wealth. Right now, gaming is better than it's ever been. Flat out, it just is. And it's an industry that's going to continue to see growth. And as I said, where there is growth, there's potential to make money. So yes, Timur, I do think you're going to see more private equity, whether that is, like I said, a full-blown buyout like you mentioned, or whether it's even just getting involved in projects. We've talked about this before with movies. Private equity does a lot of stuff with movies, especially, I would say, investors from China have done a lot of that with movies, where they help fund a film, like they help pay for part of the budget in order to get returns from that. You might even start to see some interesting things like that where private equity comes in and they're like, hey, we're going to invest this much money into this project so we get a return on that. I do think you're going to see more and more and more of these kind of things, Timur. Yeah. Thank you for that super chat. I think we have one more super chat and they are cleared for now. Thank you, everyone. This has been a great stream. Benji with a super chat. Hi, Benji. Is Nintendo moving for good to reveals coming 2 to 3 months out before launch? Why the strategy doesn't seem to affect sales? Benji, I think it's more COVID related than anything. So one of the early rumors that came out of all of this pandemic stuff that came from Jeff Grubb, who's been incredibly reliable. Anyone that watches my chat knows I'm a big fan of what Jeff has done this year. was that Nintendo in particular and Japanese companies in general were being hit harder by work from home and things like this than what we were seeing out of the West. Now, obviously, everyone was impacted, but that was one of the things that was floating around, was that Japan in particular was getting hit hard by this just because the way that they're set up in terms of how they run their companies and do business. We just had, I believe it was Square Enix, come out and say that it affected them greatly. In fact, I think the exact wording they used was that essentially almost nothing was being done for a chunk of time. So I think this very short reveal cycle that's been happening this year is actually more around that, with Nintendo being cautious about when things are going to be done, when things are going to be able to be shipped, when things are going to be ready to go. I think that has been more of the case than just, hey, let's just do a 2-month or 3-month marketing cycle. Now, one thing though that is going to come out of this is Nintendo is going to learn, hey, we don't necessarily need a gigantic long-term marketing cycle for everything. In fact, I think a lot of publishers are probably kind of learning that right now. You can have a somewhat short marketing cycle and still see a lot of success. Now, I do think there's projects that make sense to tease further out. For example, the next mainline Zelda. It makes sense to me to tease something like Breath of the Wild 2 as far back as they did, because that's the kind of thing that's going to generate console sales as well, right? People get really excited about some very big games and they'll buy a console even months or years before a game comes out if they're excited enough about it. From someone that worked at GameStop in retail for a very long time, I can tell you, when games like, for example, one of the early ones for PlayStation 4 was Uncharted. When Uncharted 4 got announced, I'm telling you, we sold some PlayStation consoles from people that literally bought PS4s just for when Uncharted came out. And that was announced way before launch. But people were so excited that they were like, I'm getting a PS4 now. I'm excited. This announcement has gotten me ready. I'm ready to buy in. I can't wait to play the game. So I would say certain key titles, these giant system-moving titles, it still makes sense to announce pretty far out so you can generate that enthusiasm, get people buying into the ecosystem. But not all games need it, right? Definitely not all. I think that's one thing we're really learning. Some games can have a short, tight cycle and still do just fine. Killian with a super chat. Thank you, Killian, so much for the super chat. Thanks for always being so supportive. Same to you, Benji. Always in these chats. Always with the super chats. Thank you so much. What is the future of Kojima Productions? Do you think they just go multi-plat? Agree a new deal with Sony, or maybe even get acquired by Sony? Killian, so we just got that announcement today that the next Kojima Productions game is fully in development, right? They said it's basically all hands go. The game is officially, of course, not announced, but they are confirming their next game's in the work and they're hiring staff to build up for it. So here is the thing, Killian. I think it all comes down to what engine they're using. So if the next game, whatever that is Decima, like Death Stranding was, that's gonna be an exclusive title, right? Because Sony owns that. Now maybe it'll be PlayStation and PC, but Sony owns the engine. So they have the say on what is used with that engine and where whatever is with the engine goes, right? It's literally theirs. They own it. So if their next game is Decima, I would say it's exclusive. Or like I said, PlayStation 5 and PC. If it's not, though, if they're going to use a different engine, then it's a very high likelihood it's probably multi-platform. Because here's my thoughts. I don't think Death Stranding did the types of numbers that Sony and even Kojima were expecting. I don't think the game was a colossal failure in terms of financials like some people think. In fact, Kojima already stated quite a while ago that the game already had broke even and was turning a profit. So we know they did not lose money, right? Death Stranding didn't lose anyone any money. The question is if it made the kind of money that they expected. My hunch is no. Considering how much emphasis was put on Kojima having an exclusive game, these big name actors being signed on for it, all the big marketing for it. My hunch is Death Stranding just did not turn the kind of money people thought it was going to. So I could see that potentially scaring Sony away from funding a follow-up Kojima game. The other question here is Kojima's next game another Death Stranding title in that universe, or is it a brand new game? Again, I just don't know. Death Stranding 2 is a bit of a tough sell because, no spoilers, do not worry anyone. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not that type of person. But Death Stranding 1 ends pretty wrapped up. You could do more games in that universe, but it does feel like a somewhat self-contained story. So in terms of narrative, it would be interesting to see what they did with a follow-up. And also, as I mentioned, I just don't think it hit as big as they expected. So my first thought would be that the next game is probably a new IP. And if it is a new IP, again, that also raises the question, is this something that's going to be multi-platform because it's brand new? It's not Death Stranding, or, so it's hard to say. It's really hard to say, Killian. What I will say is if I was Sony, I would actually buy Kojima Productions if the price tag isn't too crazy, just because we see Microsoft being ultra aggressive locking studios down, and I don't think they're done. I think Microsoft will buy more studios moving forward. I do not think they're done. In fact, I think you're going to hear more announcements within the next year. I think within the next 12 months, Microsoft will announce more studios. So I do think it would behoove Sony not to go on a spending spree like Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft has bought so many studios, it's actually crazy. I would not encourage Sony to do that because they already have a really strong first party. But a couple key teams, a Kojima Productions, a Blue Point Games, I would go in and acquire those if they're willing to sell. So those are some of my thoughts about Kojima, but like anything with Kojima, you never know. Kojima's a wild card, right? He's a complete wild card, and so is that studio. So those are some of my thoughts, though. I think super chats are cleared. Thank you so much, everyone, for all those super chats. Thank you so much. It's amazing. Let's hit some more free questions. Since we had a much better turnout than I was expecting on questions, I'll definitely go for a decent bit longer. I do have to work today, so I can't go forever, but I can still go for another solid 20, 30 minutes. Oh, cool. Ollie asked a free question earlier about Kojima. Just kind of got to that. Tony Yayo asking why the stock market is not moving. I'll be honest, I haven't been paying super close attention to the stock market in recent days, but I think it mostly comes down to unsurety about the election as well as a potential stimulus bill. That has been all over the place. One second we think we're going to get some kind of stimulus. The next second it seems like there's definitely going to be no chance of a stimulus. There's also all the uncertainty around the election about who's going to be elected. So don't worry. I'm not going to get super into politics here, people. I'm not a super political person in general. But I think that's the main thing. I think people are just unsure what's exactly going to be happening. So I think that's kind of why you're seeing things kind of just be whatever. Put it this way. After the election, things are going to rapidly move one way or the other. It's going to be, you're going to see some big shifts after the election, for sure. Kostas. Will PS4 exclusives keep selling on PS5, or will they be forgotten, just like Final Fantasy X that didn't sell as well? Oh, 9. That didn't sell as well as Final Fantasy X, even though PS2 had backwards compatibility. Kostas, I think some are going to have really good legs, and yeah, some could potentially stop selling. I think Ghost of Tsushima is going to keep having good legs. It came out very late in the PlayStation 4 cycle. It is going to be having a 60 FPS mode on PlayStation 5. Ghost of Tsushima Legends is really freaking cool, and it was a free update. I could see Ghost of Tsushima continuing to have strong legs. Spider-Man, I think, will just keep selling, though actually the PlayStation 4 version probably not so much. there is going to be the remaster. So that is technically the same game, but it'll be a different SKU. So, Kosa, some, yes. Others, maybe not so much, because there is a lot of new games coming out next year. Like we've been talking about, 2021 is stacked. So that could affect some legs of some games, yes. I will say I think you'll see better legs than maybe some previous generations, because I think personally games from this gen are going to hold up better than some old games did, right? Like if you look at the gap from like PS1 or Nintendo 64 to what we saw with like PS2 and GameCube and things like this, the jump was like really significant, and it made those older games feel dated very fast. I don't think games from this current gen are going to feel as dated next gen. Now, no doubt next gen is going to have a lot of improvements, a lot of amazing things going for it, but I think a lot of games are really going to hold up pretty well. So I think you will see some pretty good legs, but yeah, next year is stacked, so that could affect some. Nick Cato here. If third-party titles run the same on Series X and PS5, where do you see yourself buying them? I think I'll do a mix of both. Nick, I'm the same boat. So for me, third-party games right now, the way I do it is I just buy them on whatever console runs them the best. So for example, I was on PlayStation 4 the entire generation, all the way through the PS4, through the PS4 Pro, and then like as my main console. And then once the Xbox One X came out, then I moved all of my third-party games primarily to Xbox, because the Xbox One X just runs the vast majority of third-party games better than PlayStation. Right now, third-party games, if PS5 runs them better, I'm getting them on PS5. If Xbox Series X runs them better, I'm getting them on Xbox Series X. But if they run basically the same between them, it's going to come down to probably, like you said, a mix. For example, I bought Avengers on PlayStation because of that Spider-Man deal. So things like that could sway my purchase if they're going to run basically the same. You know, if a game has some enhancements on this console, I'll get it there. If they have some on this, I'll get it there. Probably a mix, yeah, like you mentioned, Nick. But if they're the same, it's going to be a mix for me. And then Tony asking if we will get a stimulus soon and need to know whether to buy. I don't think so. I don't think a stimulus is going to happen. Tony, I would love it. It would actually be great for console sales. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think there's just the country right now is so divided, and that is reflected in our government, and they don't want to get along at all and work together on anything. So I don't think it's going to happen. You know, it's a bummer how divided the country is. Again, don't worry, people. I'm not going to get super political. But it is a bummer how we just cannot agree seemingly on anything. And that is now being reflected in our government. So now our government cannot get anything done. So, who knows? We had a super chat drop again. I think that was Kay's third super chat. Holy cow. Thank you, Kay. Thank you so much, Kay. 3 super chats, I think, in one. Thank you so much. Last one. Could Microsoft use the id Tech game engine to compete with Epic's Unreal Engine and sell it to other game companies? ZeniMax acquisition opened so many doors. So, Kay, thank you for the super chat. Timur actually used a super chat and asked a very similar question earlier. So I apologize that that you have such a similar question. Kay, if you at me with another question, I will 100% answer that one, just since I answered such a similar one. But I will give you a really quick wrap up of what my thoughts were, just a pared down version of earlier. Basically, I think you will see more Microsoft Studios internal teams use id Tech. I do think it's going to be used outside of the Bethesda studios. I think that you will see somebody else use it. I won't be surprised if you see a Microsoft published game from a third party using it. I don't think, though, it's going to go fully licensed like Unreal Engine is, just because I think Unreal Engine has become so ubiquitous in the industry and so easy and familiar for devs to use that id Tech would be a new learning thing. And while it is a great engine, so many people just know how to use Unreal Engine that it is a whole different thing. So My guess is that it's mostly going to be used internally, and then maybe a few cases outside of that, but not like super heavily. But like I said, I already did that. So if you just hit at Benji and ask me another one, I will make sure I hit another one case since you did a super chat. All right. I saw JCat had one. I want to make sure to hit a JCat question because JCat is always so supportive, always in the chat. JCat, for funsies, can you comment on the Analyst? Yeah, let's do this. Who said that the PS5 would sell between 306 million units? Okay, let's talk about this Japanese analyst really quick. And as I mentioned with Pactor, I don't like to throw people under the bus, but I'm someone that thinks I am pretty knowledgeable, pretty I think I have a pretty good understanding about most of the gaming industry. But I do, as a lot of people, have a heavy dose of self-criticism of myself. A lot, actually, especially like whenever I compare myself to people that do this professionally. But every once in a while, I see something like this, or I see something from a Pactor, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I am more clued in than I give myself credit for, because sometimes people that get paid to do this, and oftentimes paid a lot of money, have some crazy takes. Okay, so I don't know if the analyst who said this did it for attention, because I think sometimes that is the motivation behind these things. I think sometimes people are just trying to stir up attention or controversy to get, their name out there or to get noticed. So I don't know this analyst who predicted this. So maybe it was that. If they did this as a very real analysis, okay, it's crazy. It is crazy. So in order for this prediction so let me give you context around why a prediction like this is crazy. So in order for this to happen, the PlayStation 5 would have to ship 2 times the peak year of the PlayStation 4. So think about the best year that the PlayStation 4, for all of its success, think about the best year PlayStation 4 ever had. It would have to do 2 times that every year for 5 years. Do you hear how crazy that is? Okay, now that I break it down for you like that, does everyone get now why I criticize that? You're talking twice the peak year of the PlayStation 4, not just for 1 year, but for 5 years straight. It's not happening. Okay, it's just not happening. Okay. If that happens, it will be the most shocking thing in the entire history of the video game industry, and there's nothing close. Nothing close. Whatever the biggest, craziest thing you can ever think about that ever happened in gaming, this would be crazier. So I think that gives you all a little context around why that is such a silly prediction. But that one's so out there, I almost think it was just done for attention. By the way, hello to everyone saying hi in chat. So many kind hellos. Hello, hello, hello. It is amazing to see you all. Urkin Basglow here with a comment that I agree with. Doom Eternal was much harder than Doom 2016. Yes, it was way harder. In Doom 2016, you were the hunter. In Doom Eternal, it feels like you were the hunted. I still love it, though. You know what, Ugarken, sorry, that's a hard name for me to pronounce, so I apologize if I'm doing it bad. I agree with you. That's actually a great way of phrasing it. Doom 2016, you felt empowered. You felt like you were the one just going through here decimating demons. And while there is moments that you feel like that in Doom Eternal, you do also feel a lot more vulnerable, and it does make the game way harder. So I get why some people don't like it for that reason. It has a totally different feel than 2016. But yeah, I really liked it, but I get why some people don't. Harry here, Harry Hofert. Hey Benji, do you think there's any chance that Microsoft brings the Age of Empires games to console? I was a huge fan of them growing up, but I don't want to invest in a PC right now. Yes, Harry, I think it is going to happen. I think it is going to happen on Series X. So right now, we have Gears Tactics coming over. Now, that is a more simplified game to play than Age of Empires. I played Gears Tactics on PC. Didn't quite finish it because I decided to wait to finish it on console, but it's more like an XCOM kind of feel. So it is a little bit more streamlined and easy to get, working on a controller than I think Age of Empires would be. Whereas while Age of Empires isn't like the most advanced RTS in the world, it is still pretty darn in-depth. So it is a little bit more challenging to get it working well on a controller, but we do know that next gen's going to have PC, mouse and keyboard support and all that. Harry, I think they're going to find a way to make it work. Yeah, I do think you're going to see Age of Empires games on console. Whether that will be all of them or just the next Age of Empires, I'm not sure. But in some capacity, yes. I think you will see Age of Empires on console. Yep, I think it'll happen. Killian asking about the rumor that the next Assassin's Creed will be set in China or Japan. You know what, Killian? I always wanted a Japanese set Assassin's Creed until Ghost of Tsushima. And now I don't. I don't. I'll still be excited if it gets announced for Japan. And yes, one game shouldn't definitively have reign over an entire setting. We have games like Nioh, for example, or Sekiro that are also set in like that feudal Japanese style, though of course with some fantasy elements. But I feel like Ghost of Tsushima it's totally different in some ways, but in some ways it really does scratch that Assassin's Creed itch that I actually now really hope that doesn't happen. However, I think Assassin's Creed China would be awesome. Yeah, we have not had that yet, right? Ghost of Tsushima kind of gave us that Assassin's Creed Japan feel, but we don't have a China equivalent. So that's what I hope. Killian, if it is a setting somewhat like that, which the rumors are pointing to, really hope it's China instead of Japan, personally. All right, we just had a super chat hit. Let me hit that super chat from Benji. Thank you so much, Benji, for another super chat. Thank you for always being so supportive. Benji, what happened with The Last of Us Part 2? Interesting question. It had a crazy launch, but just after a few months, it disappeared from the charts. Any impact on a sequel? So let's go into this a little bit. The Last of Us Part 2 is one of those games that I'm always somewhat uncomfortable about talking about because it is just drama. However you talk about it. It is drama from all sides. People that despise that game. People that adore that game. That is one of those games that is, I can tell you from someone, I'm sure everyone knows this, but as someone with a somewhat prominent platform, the heat gets intense when you talk about The Last of Us. Either way, if you talk positively about it or if you talk negatively about it. But I think we're far enough out now we can kind of talk a little bit more about it. I would classify The Last of Us Part 2's legs as not great. I don't think they're as terrible as some people think they are, right? I've seen some people be like, it's a bomb after launch. This game completely bombed. I don't think that's accurate. However, it is clearly not having the kind of legs, for example, that you saw out of like a Spider-Man, or even I think probably is what's going to happen out of a Ghost of Tsushima. In terms of long term, I'm not necessarily saying for sure Ghost of Tsushima will outsell The Last of Us Part 2 because The Last of Us Part 2 had such a colossal launch. But I do think that there's a chance Ghost of Tsushima just hangs around charts longer. So The Last of Us Part 2 legs to me are meh. However, its launch was so strong that it doesn't really matter because Sony definitely made money off of this game and a lot of it because it launched so big. So they sold a ton of units at full price or higher for collector's editions. In terms of any impact on a sequel, I would say I would be in no rush to make The Last of Us Part 3. I think it should happen. I think that universe is still ripe for games set in it, even if they have nothing to do with the characters in that game. Though I think it would still be. Don't worry, I won't spoil anything for anyone that hasn't played it. Coxcrow, I see your comment here on the bottom. We're gonna go into that. I can follow that up really quick. So I'll just mention here. Coxcrow, isn't The Last of Us 2 the third most sold game of 2020? That is specifically because its launch was so astronomical. It's kind of what we're going into here. Its launch was insane. It's just, it hasn't sold a metric ton after that, though it is still selling. I think it's disingenuous to say it's not selling at all. It's just not having great legs, right? So, I do think The Last of Us Part 3 should happen. I would wait. I would do a new IP if I was Naughty Dog next. I would do something brand new, totally different. Give people time to digest The Last of Us Part 2. Give it a little space. Give it a little breathing room. And then do Part 3 after the new IP. I think going straight from Part 2 to Part 3 might not be the best decision just because the game is so controversial, right? I think give it a little breathing room. So, but I do think, Benji, it will happen. I think it should happen. I would just give it a little time. Let me hit this KH at, and then let me hit this super chat. But I told KH that I owed them one since their question was similar to a previous super chat. We are talking about Microsoft and Sony buying other companies. We know that's not Nintendo's type of thing, but what gaming company could you see being bought by Nintendo? Realistic or dream? Yeah, as you mentioned, that is not Nintendo's kind of style, but one that would be interesting, I think, Kay, that's not impossible, would be Platinum. I know that would make some people upset because Platinum Games, makes games for multi-platform. But we do know that Nintendo and Platinum have a relationship around Bayonetta. I think that could be a very interesting 1K, potentially, to see a Platinum Games get acquired by them. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's one that I could at least somewhat theoretically see. I think it would be fun for Nintendo to get somebody that is not a Nintendo type company, just to throw a completely different out there take on what they do, right? Nintendo makes so many family-friendly games, so many games that we think of as the Disney of Nintendo. Now, not everything, right? They do make some teen-rated games and stuff, but it would be fun to see Nintendo. I mean, Bayonetta they've published, which is M. It'd be fun to see a Nintendo-owned studio that's pumping out M-rated games. I just think that would be super interesting. I know it's not their style, but it would just be a big shakeup, right? I think that would be fun and something totally different to see them have a first-party team that hey, when this game comes out, it's going to be a pretty hardcore M-rated game. I don't think every game needs to be M-rated, but Nintendo has so few of those, I think it would be pretty interesting. So, Platinum would be a company that could potentially do that, or someone else, yeah. All right, man, we got way more questions than I was expecting in this chat. I'm going to keep going for 9 minutes because that'll be the stream right at an hour and a half. And then I got to get ready for work. But thank you, everyone, for making this stream great. It's been way more than I expected, to be honest. Way, way more. So thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. Benji's Tank Top with a super chat. The Game Awards reveal predictions. Mine are the Initiative game reveal. Ooh. And Returnal gameplay reveal. Ooh. Out there predictions are also welcome. Okay. For once, we can say not Rocksteady. Rocksteady was one of those ones that every year it seemed like there was a rumor or theories, right? Rocksteady, this is going to be where Rocksteady finally announces their game because they had announced Batman before at the Game Awards. But that's now officially announced. So Rocksteady is finally off of the table. I like your idea for the Initiative. I think that could happen. Yeah. Yeah, Benji's Tank Top. I think that's potentially possible. I think Microsoft wants something big in terms of a new game or something from them. Because here's the thing. While I think a lot of us think that Microsoft has a very interesting lineup on the way, so many games are super far away from them, or at least appear to be, that you still have a bit of this narrative around where's the games Microsoft with them, right? Particularly because at launch they have so few first-party exclusives that are coming out. So I think something there, as Split End just mentioned, Starfield maybe. I think a Starfield showing or the initiative or something. I do think Microsoft will have something big there. Keep in mind, y'all, Microsoft went big at last year's The Game Awards. They showed the console and they showed Hellblade 2. That's about as big as you can go for the Game Awards. So that tells me they like showing something big there. So the initiative makes sense. Yeah, I could absolutely see the initiative being there, or Starfield, as Split End mentioned. Someone, I think Nintendo will have something. Maybe Breath of the Wild 2. When's Age of Calamity come out? Right before that, right? It's before the Game Awards. I can't remember the exact dates. I think Breath of the Wild 2, yeah. KH saying Breath of the Wild 2 new trailer. I think it's going to happen, yeah. Those are going to be my big two predictions. Is going to be something very big from Microsoft, whether that's the initiative, whether that's Starfield, whether that's gameplay for something that was announced that we didn't see anything on, so a Fable or something like that. Something really big from Microsoft. And then I think Breath of the Wild 2. Big Fresh 37. Benji, can you give us a double bicep flex? Well, I'll be honest, y'all. I just got back into my workout regimen. I took like a solid month off from working out, so I am not in peak form at all. So there's one. Here's two. There we go. But I am, trust me, I'm not that impressive right now. I took like a solid month off from working out, and it reflected in my gains. But I am slim right now. I can tell you that. I am slimmed up. So that's the good news. My diet's been on point. Got some abs going. But the biceps have suffered from a full month of not doing jack. So we're back on it. The workout is back. We're going to get yoked. All right, let's get a few more free questions and then we out of here. Few more freebies. JCat with the $2 sticker. Thank you so much, JCat. Thank you so much. I promise y'all, better biceps soon. Better biceps soon, for sure. Peter, Xbox Series X will be my primary gaming console for next gen, as I do believe the vast majority of multi-platform games will be better on Series X than PS5. PS5 will be my exclusives secondary console. Peter, that's kind of what I'm guessing right now too for me. I think my guess is Series X will probably run them better. So yeah, that's probably going to be my main console, with the PS5 being, you know, totally decked out and exclusive. So I'll still use my PS5 a lot. But yeah, unless Digital Foundry surprises me with their analysis, I think I'm going to be probably the same spot as you, Peter, probably. And then Peter saying only Switch has a chance of surpassing PS2 in lifetime sales. I don't see PS4 finishing ahead, nor PS5. I agree, Peter. I agree. I think PS5 is also going to sell over 100 million units like the PS4 did. I could totally see like 120, 130 million range for PS5. I don't see it over PS2 though, unless something surprising happens, but I'm with you. I'm with you. Urgacan, Amazon and Google knows literally nothing about the gaming industry. I agree with you. To be honest with you, yes. Their efforts so far have failed, so you can't just buy your way into the gaming industry. But I'm with you. Yeah, I don't feel optimistic about either one of their efforts. All right, is there just a couple more to pull out? We've got 3 minutes left. Let me pull a couple more and we're out. Case by case basis here with a kind comment saying Benji is one of the few dudes on YouTube I like sending super chats to. He actually gives an F and spends time answering. Well, case by case basis, thank you so much. Listen, these live chats are my favorite thing I do, right? I like these more. Here's the thing. Here's one thing I have learned from as I've grown with a platform, right? Because my YouTube is still fairly small, right? We have, I think, 2.5 thousand subscribers here or something like that. I could be a bit off, but my Twitter's way bigger, right? My Twitter's at almost 17,000 followers, which isn't like, I'm not trying to say I'm like this big famous dude or anything. Nothing like that at all. But like I have a decent Twitter following. Like it's pretty large actually in terms of like how much interaction I get. And here is one thing I have learned, not to throw anyone under the bus or anything like that, but a lot of people with bigger followings, not all, there are some incredibly kind ones I've met, right? Again, this is not throwing anyone under the bus. I've met very few people that are mean with big followings. But one thing I've noticed is that as someone gets more and more and more, they like to interact kind of with people that are mostly also big. And to me, those aren't really the most valuable interactions I have, actually. Like, I think these live chats, talking with you all here, even without the super chats, y'all, I was doing these live chats before super chats were even a thing for my channel because I didn't have enough subscribers. To me, many of these interactions mean more than talking to someone with 1 million followers, right? Because this is like real, right? We're having a real conversation here. Y'all have super interesting things. To me, it ain't about that. So taking the time to answer the questions, it ain't just about the super chat. That's why I try to answer as many free ones as possible too. I genuinely enjoy doing this. Like I genuinely enjoy talking with y'all. I really do. And I know that easily could come across as dishonest or self-serving, but that's not how I mean it. Okay, we had one super chat drop. I'm going to hit that super chat, and then we're going to bounce out strictly because I have to go to work. So let me hit this last super chat from Benji. I'm going to hit that, and then I got to get ready and bounce out to work. Thank you, everyone, for making this chat bigger than I thought it was going to be on a slow news week. Benji gets this last super chat. Anyone that I didn't answer your free questions, I'm sorry. We will do another live chat next week. We do these every week. So any questions you have, try and bring them over next week as well. Benji, with the Uncharted movie picks reveal, what is the best and worst video game movies for you? Your best is Silent Hill, worst is Dead or Alive. Okay, so first let's talk about the Uncharted movie picks. Seems to be going very well for Sony. It was #2 trending on Twitter when I looked earlier. Tom Holland had like 2 million Instagram likes on the picture of him as Drake. Like it blew up. Even on Twitter, which doesn't usually generate as many likes as something like Instagram, his tweet had over 200,000 likes and 30,000 retweets in less than an hour. So clearly this got a freaking ton of attention. I mean a lot. I think he looks way better than what I expected, to be honest. I actually really like Tom Holland as an actor. Like, I think he does amazing as Spider-Man. But when they first announced he was Drake, I was like, I don't know about that casting, right? I just wasn't sure, but I'll tell you what, now seeing the look, I think he looks way better than I expected, like way better. And I think that's being reflected in the numbers. So who knows, this movie could still be a disaster, but I think if the script is good, this could actually be good. Like this could actually be legit. That's an encouraging sign. In terms of best and worst video game movies, some that I liked Sonic. Sonic was the last movie I saw in movie theaters before the pandemic hit. I actually really enjoyed Sonic. I thought it was really funny. And I actually thought they did a good job of like honoring the source of what Sonic is while still making it make sense in a movie. I really liked Detective Pikachu. Detective Pikachu I loved. So that and Sonic. I actually liked Prince of Persia. I know that's one that is like super mixed. A lot of people did not like that movie. I actually kind of dug it. It wasn't amazing, but it was like enjoyable. The worst, I'll be honest, I haven't seen Dead or Alive. There's a lot of bad ones, like really bad ones. I've avoided most of the really bad ones. Probably the overall worst one I've seen. Might be in Mario Brothers, the old school Mario movie. It's pretty bad. um, it's kind of like a cult bad though, so it's almost like a so bad it's good thing. Let me spin it off for you, Benji, because they make video games based off this too. The worst I've ever seen that ties into video games as well as anime and all that is Dragon Ball Evolution. I think that was the name, right? The live action Dragon Ball movie. That was trash. As a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, when I watched that, I was in horror at what I was witnessing in that movie. So that would be the worst. I think it technically counts for video games too, because there's a lot of Dragon Ball video games. I know it was more based off the anime, but you know what? I'm going to count that as my answer because there are literally like 100 Dragon Ball games. So I'm going to count it. That was the worst. That was just complete freaking trash. All right, everyone. Thank you for making another episode of the live chat great. Thank you for everyone that showed up. Thank you for the tons of questions. If you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel. We do one of these every week. A lot of times we have like a big topic we focus on, but this was kind of like a slow news week. So there wasn't anything really we focused on, but make sure you subscribe. Subscribe to the channel if you're not yet. Make sure you hit like because it does help the YouTube channel and the videos that I make get discovered. So hit that like, subscribe. I will see you all on Twitter, or I will see you on the next YouTube live chat next week. Like I said, a couple things in the works. We're going to have a Series XS hype video 1 week before they come out. I'm talking to some journalists. I'm talking to maybe some developers. We're going to see. We're going to figure out. We're going to get a panel up and rocking going for that. And then we'll do one for PlayStation as well. So you have that to look forward to potentially in the works as well. Thanks, everyone. And I will see y'all soon. Stay safe. Play some games. And I will catch y'all soon. Later, everyone. Bye.